Well,
hello,
hello,
and
and
welcome to
welcome to
another
another
edition
edition
of
of
Eagle
Eagle
News
News
Forum.
Forum.
My name is
My name
Dr.
is Dr.
Malcolm
Malcolm
Beach,
Beach,
and I'm
and
your
I'm your
guest for
guest for
today's
today's
show. We
show. We
really
really
appreciate you
appreciate you
joining us
joining us
today.
today.
We try
We
to
try to
cover
cover
different
different
topics
topics
associated with
associated with
bringing the
bringing the
African
African
diaspora,
diaspora,
developing
developing
closer
closer
ties with
ties with
Africa.
Africa.
And
And
today we
today
have a
we have a
very
very
special
special
guest,
guest.
Mr. Frederick Anderson. He's the author of a new book that's coming out very soon called Doing Business Internationally, a Practical Guide. Welcome, Mr. Anderson. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Dr. Beach. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate being here with you to talk about this interesting subject matter that we have. Yes.
Yeah, I know you've been, you've been involved with this area for a very long time in terms of international business, and you traveled quite a bit. And a lot of times people just feel a little, I won't say afraid, but uncertain about doing business internationally. And that's from everywhere. Whether you're going to try to do business in Africa or you try to do business from America, there's something unsettling about doing business internationally. So tell us a little bit of some of the key points that you think people need to consider when they're trying to grow their business.
Well, one of the things that I always tell people, it's no different doing business internationally as doing business where you're at. There's certain nuances that you have to deal with, but the first thing you have to be willing to do I would say the research and understanding the answers to those pertinent questions, like what does it take to do business? What are my licensing requirements? What are the importing requirements? What are the tax issues? And then be willing to identify professionals to help you get those answers. Because all too often, I think some of us, because we don't know the answers, we say, well, gee, I can't be in that marketplace. But the reality is when you started your business initially, you use what I call the A-team. You use attorneys, accountants, and advisors to help you. So when you think of doing business internationally, you should think the same way.
Okay, so you're saying it is possible to get the answers to some of those problems that people might perceive to be the barriers or walls to them doing business. But why is it that most business people need to start thinking internationally? What's going on in the marketplace?
Well, I think in general, like when you think about any business sector that you're in, I mean, there could be a saturation point for your business, right? And then in your current market, but where you are, it might be saturated. But if you think internationally, there might be other either retailers or users or people in need of your business or service or your product that you just have to kind of be willing to kind of seek them out. And so seeking them out is looking in other locations, looking in other continents, looking to other countries, looking to other markets, because the reality is that the roughly only in domestically, when you're thinking about doing business, 70% of the business outside of the U.S. is available to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell me, when you first decided to actually sit down and compile the information and the tips and advice in your book, what were some of the considerations that you wanted to make? I mean, what does the book help you understand more or better about international business?
Well, what got me started was basically all too often in my travels and in my conversations and dealing with my clients and prospective clients, they are intimidated by the overall process, and so that's when I realized that we have to demystify doing international business, because I believe in the KISS principle, keeping it simple and straightforward. So that made me think, okay, fine, how can we make this happen? And normally, as from a consultancy standpoint, I normally spend about an hour talking to someone, from what I call Fortune 10 international business areas to Main Street mom and pop small SMEs who are looking to do business internationally, interviewing them to try and get an understanding of their business concept and their ideas. But it goes into understanding, what markets that you're currently in and what are the similarities in other market locations that meet your market demographics. And then once you identify that, then what we try and do, especially in the book, is start just going through the checklist, looking at the different business structures that you might need to be to doing business in that marketplace, understanding the value of what you might be bringing to that marketplace as far as intellectual property and things of that nature, making sure that you have your intellectual property protected, and then also understanding the resources that you need to do business there. Do you have to, is it going to be importing products, exporting services, whatever the case may be, and then again, understanding the tariffs and the taxation. And again, understanding what you need, then seek out what I call the professionals to assist you in coming up with the answers. And again, that's doing business internationally by recognizing you might need an attorney in another marketplace to understand that marketplace. And then recognize that you might need some services to be provided to you in another marketplace. So it's nothing different than what you've done in doing your current business.
Well, let me ask you this: is it a different level of difficulty when it comes to things like, well, financing? How do I finance a project or a program internationally? Is that different from financing it domestically?
The answer is yes. Okay, but even financing projects domestically, there are challenges. But the idea is to kind of understand what those challenges are, and then work with professionals that can help you to navigate them, because it's doable. And that's where the key is, just understanding the nuances of that marketplace and understanding the services in the financial areas that are available to you to help you with your financing. And it can range from, again, debt financing, equity financing, using different collateral options, understanding the different government support that you might have in obtaining the financing. And it's not easy to say, hey, as a business owner, that if you don't have a team of people around you that can help you to navigate that, to make it happen. And that's why I always encourage people to surround yourself with a team of people that are professionals and experts in those areas to assist you to kind of deal with those challenges. Because that's the beginning of it. When you start looking at international markets, you say, hey, I want to go into this marketplace. What are my funding needs to be in that marketplace? And then what money's made available to me? And then how do you get those dollars? And that's where what we do in the in the book, we kind of have a worksheet that goes through the different options and the different questions that you might need to understand. And it's again, I try and keep it simple and straightforward. And it's something that you already have done in your domestic market. Now you're just expanding it into the international marketplace and needing some international guidance.
Okay. Let me, everybody has dreams. I'm trying to think if there's is there a rate of return that makes international business better than domestic? Can you make more money internationally than you can domestically, or that just depends?
Well, I mean, it definitely depends, but there's a lot of, I'd say, pros and cons, right, to doing business internationally. Basically, let's use Africa for an example. People here, and since I'm from the U.S., we say there's roughly 340 million people in the U.S., but on the continent of Africa, there's roughly about 1.3 billion people. Okay, so then you start saying to yourself, what are the characteristics of your product or services that may be useful in those marketplaces? So you might be able to identify markets that are available to you, and then in certain markets, you might be considered the market leader because you have a niche and a product that you've developed in the U.S. that has not yet been exposed into other markets. So that could set you aside, and in doing so, you might be able to get a bigger portion of the market, therefore a bigger portion, a bigger return on your investment. And that's on the sell side. And then on the supply side, you might be able to find manufacturers that might be willing to manufacture the components of your product or service at a lesser price, reducing your costs. So then overall, in your overall business model, you're having an increased revenue throughout. So you've got to do the analysis, and it's not that complicated, but it's just, I tell people it's not an art, it's really a science, and just you just got to be willing to kind of sit down there and put the time and effort behind it.
Mm-hmm. Well, recently, I know you participated in the first Pan-African conference of the National Black Chamber of Commerce, National Black Chamber of Commerce, and the National Business League, and it was part of a group called the National Alliance of Black Business. So, is this group effort something that you see in the future? Are we going to see more people getting together to talk about international business?
Well, I mean, and that's part of what I call the overall strategic strategy is that any business owner, like for example, I'm part of the National Black Chamber of Commerce, who partnered with the National Business League, who actually started the National Alliance of Black Businesses, which participated in the National Black Business Conference. And our focus as part of the international discussion was basically coming together so that we can collaborate on doing more business. Because networking in business is something that's a must that most successful business owners know that you have to do. And internationally, you've got to come together in places where there's people in this space that are doing international business that might be able to provide you either, a supply side solution or provide you some services on maybe the tax side, the customs conversation. And that's the point of that organization. And that's why I would encourage people to become part of organizations that are in line with what you're looking to do, but then get involved, okay? So that being said, yes, Dr. Beach, the goal is for these organizations to recognize the opportunities internationally, especially when we look at the diaspora, that there's so much opportunity that we have not taken advantage of, but now we can start taking advantage of it by coming together and by raising our hands and saying, hey, I'm a business owner in this space, and I would love to consider being in an international space, and especially when we talk about the African and continent, there's so many opportunities that I feel that the Black business owners, the African American business owners, and the diasporans, we have not come together to take advantage of. But I feel very strongly that we're moving in that direction. And to be quite candid with you, I'm doing as much as I can to help us do that. And that's one of the reasons I decided to come out and publish the book, even though it's been in the works. But I now realize that there's no time to delay, and just to kind of get this guide out so people will realize that it's something that's doable. Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like the book is coming out at the right time. I think there's a greater interest now in doing business internationally, and more people are willing to take the chance, to get out there and see what they can do. Now, you mentioned that the group thought, the group thing. What are you seeing that some of people's greatest fears are, or challenges that you've heard that they have in thinking about going forward with an international business deal?
Well, and that's where, when you look at business in general, right? Most people do business with people that they know, okay, who they like, but then they trust. In the international environment, sometimes we don't have the, how can I say, relationships that we know people are doing certain things, okay? And so what's happening is, I think people, especially myself, we're being more intentional to get to know people that are doing business, right? And then I think we're kind of segueing around the word liking folks, but if we like the business opportunity, we're looking to say, okay, fine, how can we collaborate and how can we take advantage of the opportunity of doing business together? So we are looking to be intentional in doing that so that we can kind of navigate and expedite the opportunities of doing the business that we should have been doing. And that starts off by just having the conversations. And that's part of the networking. Do you know a person in a country that you may have been thinking about? Or you might say, hey, I've been trying to find a call center, to set up a call center someplace because my operations, is growing. And I understand people are setting up international call centers. So let's find those areas in where you might find someone who's have an international call center in the country that say, hey, I could bring you on as a client that's doing business together and that's doing business internationally. So it's definitely, the discussions are happening on all levels and all sectors, and people are being very much intentional to the point that a lot of the countries are actually doing specific outreach to let people know that they're open and ready for business. And just let me just touch on the one area for a moment. And I would say, when you think of certain international areas, some people think that certain areas may not be as developed. But on the continent of Africa, there's more developed businesses than we realize, especially among the African American community. And the diaspora is really looking to kind of go back to the continent, go back to the countries in Africa, and also looking to do business. So that's where we now can take our talent, match it with our treasure as far as our investment, and then take advantage of the opportunities of doing business and servicing a community that actually is looking to be serviced with the products that we have or looking to do the jobs that we need to get done. So,
Okay, let me just ask you this question. In terms of your own personal experience, um, how many places in Africa have you visited? How many times have you been there before you finally decided, well, let me think about seriously about doing business over there? Are there any suggestions you have about travel? Because we also talk about travel and tourism on this show.
oh well, and let me say this, like my overall international business mindset was actually shaped in the Caribbean. All right.
Okay.
And I say that because there's not a Caribbean island that I've not visited. You know, you name one, I visited. And every time I visited, it was either from a point of view of understanding the culture, right? And then understanding the business opportunity. And that was because, again, it was close to the US, the continent, okay? And then that's when I realized, well, wait a minute, there is bigger opportunities. And that's where most recently, I started interacting with businesses on the continent of Africa that are in Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Sierra Leone, um, um, Uganda, just to name a few. And there's so many different opportunities to bring trade missions as well as tourism. And one of the things that I tell people when I started traveling in the Caribbean, initially was from a vacationing touristic mindset. But as a business development consultant, I always thought, wait a minute, you guys have a need for a product of one of my clients, or you can be one of my clients where I could bring your product or service to my other clients around the globe. And so that's how that happened. So I've traveled extensively in what I call the diaspora area, including Africa, the Caribbean, and in Latin America as well.
So you would recommend that people considering doing business, especially in Africa, that they actually go to Africa, to see the lay of the land and hopefully meet some people and develop their networking on that side of the ocean, because that seems to be paramount. And you planning to go back soon, I think you told me. You're going back to Africa pretty soon?
Yes. Actually, there are a couple of reasons I'll be going back. First,
Okay.
First, there are some clients that I have that are in Kenya that we're looking at certain projects that we're looking to kind of move to the next level, and that's one of the things that's always enriching. Secondly, there's a trade mission that is in the works for Senegal that actually has come out of the conference that we had in August, where the Senegal agency, APEX, came and basically introduced to us some opportunities. So I'm looking to go to Senegal to look at their opportunities to see how I can kind of help promote it and support it. And then basically there are also some opportunities that's happening in Nigeria that I'm looking to move forward to. And believe it or not, one of my relationships have just secured a contract in a area close to Ethiopia. So I'll be traveling there as well. And this is probably all happen before the year is out. So,
all right. Well, that sounds,
but
that sounds like you got a busy travel schedule. I mean, you're going to be leaving America, in what you're saying, and going over there. And that's what you have to do, I guess. You can't just do it all remotely from America. You got to go on some trips, is what you're saying.
And yes, Dr. Beach, what's really funny, like the pandemic did a couple of things, right? It made us realize that certain opportunities have to be cultivated as quickly as possible. And that's where I think, having virtual conversations, is perfect. But then from a business standpoint, that helps you to get out maybe some of what they call the paperwork or some of the things that are just can be discussed. But it really helps you to line up. So when you go to the country, you can hit the ground running, right? You can say, let me see the location of where this free trade zone is being developed. Let me see the location of where you're saying that you'll be able to manufacture the goods and services that I need for my customer base. Let me actually meet with the services of the country that's saying, hey, these are the trade ministers that you need to speak with. And to that point, that's why I think it's always good to kind of go on trade missions, because usually in organizations, like the NBCC, like NBL, like NAB, they can help to expedite some of these relationships so that you can meet some of the business owners and network with them specifically, meet with some of the trade ministers and know what their desires are and what their priorities are, get an understanding of what are the incentive packages that are being made available on the private side as well as the governmental side, and then get a sense of the environment. Because the reality is this: not until I started traveling, especially to the continent, do you realize my understanding was misguided by some of the things that were messaged to me through other media, that these countries were not as developed as they are. Because you'll be pleasantly surprised that they're very, very much developed, and that they have a desire to do business with us, because it's something that the business community, their communities, their governments need. And if we have a skill or service that we can provide them, why not take advantage of the opportunity to provide them?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I guess I would also ask this question, not to take it for granted, but most people in these countries you visit, they welcome you, right? I mean, they're glad to see you, and they want to get to know more about you. They're friendly. I guess that's the thing that is interesting to me.
And that's so true. I mean, and sometimes the way we're received is almost, how can I say, soul stirring, to the point that you feel the warmth, you feel the desire, and you feel the outreach. That they're saying, we want you to be here to work with us. And that is something I think that, especially on the African continent, the desire is not to have people to just come and do business and leave, right? But to have people to come and to do business, work with them, help them to develop, and they want to help you to develop in their marketplaces. And that's what business is all about. It's got to be a mutual benefit for everyone.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we only got a few minutes left, so I want you to explain to our viewers just how they can, what to look forward with this book. When is the book going to actually launch? How can they get it, and what should they do?
Well, basically, the book will be launching shortly. My goal is to, speaking with my publisher, is kind of doing the final editing of it, just to make sure that it has some of the most latest points. And I always tell people, follow me on LinkedIn. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of things that are going to be happening that will be coming through that, and that's Frederick L. Anderson on LinkedIn. All right, and then the book, we're going to initially publish it, obviously, through all your sources that you normally get your books online, and Amazon Publishing is one of the areas that I just tell people that we're going to be starting off with, and we're going to be doing some other things, and that's where, stay tuned, because there's some things that we're looking to do in the media space, because we feel, we definitely applaud you, Dr. Beecham, what you're doing, and we're looking to figure out how we can amplify it, because as we all realize, when we work together, we can get more done. You may be familiar with the African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. But I believe that we're of an age where we can put together a mastermind team, a mastermind group, to team up so we can go far and fast and make an impact. And that's something that I'll be developing through my LinkedIn, and I want my relationships to all participate, because I believe that there's so much opportunity that if we all work together, we'll be able to benefit from it and make it a mutual benefit for not only from the business side, but also for our community side.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. All of us are looking forward to this book coming out, and to find out more about how to do business internationally, especially in Africa. And that's about all that we have for today's show. I want to thank everyone for watching and paying attention. And if you have any other questions, you can contact me on beacheagle@gmail.com or our website at eaglenews.com. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. And with that, we'll say we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day. So long, Fred.